Welcome back. FBI Director Christopher Wray announcing he will resign at the end of President Biden's term. President-elect Trump calling this a great day for America, saying it will end the weaponization of the Justice Department. Pennsylvania Democrat Senator John Fetterman agreed with Trump that there has been weaponization. In his very first post on Truth Social, Fetterman writes this: the Trump hush money and Hunter Biden cases were both BS, and pardons are appropriate. Weaponizing the judiciary for blatant partisan gain diminishes the collective faith in our institutions and sows further division. Good for John Fetterman. Trump is also touting his nomination of FBI Director of Kash Patel, saying he is, quote, the most qualified nominee to lead the FBI in the agency's history, who will work to make the FBI great again. I spoke with Kash Patel on Sunday Morning Futures last month about his plans to restore faith in government agencies. I asked him how he'll do it.
Exposure of corruption. Put out the documents, put out the evidence. We only have gotten halfway down the Russiagate hole. The people need to know that their FBI is restored by knowing full well what they did to unlawfully surveil them. The people need to know that there has been a de-weaponization, a defanging of the Department of Justice, and their houses of worship will no longer be raided. But they need to be shown the documents that said this was the reasoning they weaponized justice. And that, in my opinion, is how Congress can most importantly secure the trust or resecure the trust of these agencies and departments.
Joining me now is Ohio Congressman and the chairman of the House Judiciary Committee, Jim Jordan. He is also the chairman of the Weaponization of Government Subcommittee and a member of the House Oversight Committee as well. Mr. Chairman, good to see you this morning. Thank you so much for being here.
Good to be with you. Thank you.
On such an important day, Christopher Wray resigns. Kash Patel looking to get confirmed. Your reaction?
Well, first of all, I'm glad Christopher Wray has resigned. I mean, remember, Christopher Wray spied on Americans' bank transactions without a warrant. Christopher Wray helped censor the laptop story 4 years ago. Christopher Wray's FBI is the FBI that said if you're, mom and dad going to a school board meeting, you need to be investigated. They're the ones who did the memorandum. If you remember the Richmond field office, the memo that said, oh, pro-life Catholics are extremists. They raided President Trump's home. They retaliated against whistleblowers. And maybe here's the clincher when you think about it. Earlier this week, the Inspector General released a report that said Christopher Wray, when he first got the job, spied on congressional staffers. And guess who one of those staffers was that was being spied on by the Chris Wray FBI? Kash Patel, the guy who's going to take his place and clean up the place, as Kash was just explaining on your show from a few weeks ago.
How did this happen, Congressman? I mean, I remember during 2016 and 2017, 2018, Kash Patel and Devin Nunes were coming on my show, this program, as well as Sunday Morning Futures on Fox News, and they told us, we've been spied on, and everybody mocked them. So what happened to the FBI that politicized it so much that they decided that they could just spy on anybody they wanted if they didn't agree with their politics?
Jim Comey, Lisa Page, Peter Strzok, Andy McCabe were all the ones involved in that whole Russia collusion hoax, where they took the Clinton campaign, paid Perkins Coie, their law firm, who then hired Fusion GPS, who then hired a foreigner, Christopher Steele, who put together the fake document. The dossier took it to the court so they could spy on a presidential campaign, and they did all that. And it was Kash Patel and under Chairman Nunes who helped us understand what they were doing. But it started with Comey, and what happened is Chris Wray didn't change things. He just basically kind of kept it going along. That's the problem, and it's why you need it. It's always about leadership. Always about leadership. The right kind of leaders change the attitude and the atmosphere. That's why we need to change there, and Kash is the guy to do it.
So, Mr. Chairman, you just mentioned you released a new report revealing how the federal government weaponized the Bank Secrecy Act to spy on Americans. And you've said that the Biden-Harris administration and federal law enforcement worked with financial institutions to gain unchecked access to private financial data, finding that the FBI manipulated the suspicious activity report filing process in the process. So what happened? Why were they spying on ordinary American citizens' bank accounts?
Well, we first learned about it when we had a whistleblower come forward and tell us that the FBI sent a message to email to the Bank of America saying any debit card, credit card transactions that took place on January 5th, 6th, or 7th, 2021 in the D.C. area, we want that information. Again, without a warrant. So it was a whistleblower who came and told us that. And then they said any of those purchases on that date or on those days, and then overlay that with any firearm purchase ever, which is, again, totally unconstitutional. But they did it. And then because of that, we dug into this and we found that what's happened is they've sort of turned things around. The Bank Secrecy Act, I think misnamed, but the Bank Secrecy Act says banks, if you see something suspicious with your customers, you should report that in a suspicious activity report, send that to the Treasury Department. But what's been happening in practice is they're not alerting the government to that. The government's reaching out to banks, say, hey, can you find this on this customer, this business, and then send it to us. We even have one email, Maria, where the bank said, yeah, we have some of that information, send us a subpoena. And the government gets on the phone and says, well, you really don't want a subpoena, just give us the information. And we know in 2023, 14,000 government officials searched this database where this information comes in 3 million times, all without a warrant. That is a problem. That is not supposed to be how our great country operates. So again, all the more reason why we need to look at this Bank Secrecy Act, in my judgment, and we need an FBI that's not snooping on Americans.
Well, you really put a spotlight on all of this with your weaponization subcommittee and really connected the dots to see what was going on, and it was politics. So do you think Kash Patel can come into the FBI and fix this?
Yeah, we need to get back to the FBI being focused on what Americans think their FBI should be doing. Right now, Maria, think about this. The FBI budget's over $11 billion a year. More than half of that money and more than half the personnel are focused on intelligence gathering, counterintelligence, and domestic terrorism. I think most Americans think their FBI is out there stopping traditional bad guys who are in gangs or organized crime or money laundering or whatever. I think that's where most Americans think their FBI should be focused. But instead, they got this dual purpose now, and there's so much on the intelligence gathering and this domestic terrorism. You know, the reason why they put together this memo in the Richmond field office of the FBI that said pro-life Catholics should be deemed extremists. It's ridiculous. That's what has to change. And again, I think it starts with the leadership, certainly with the President of the United States, with President Trump, and the good people he's nominating and putting forward for these key cabinet and agency positions.
Well, and it brings me to DOGE and a business discussion. By the way, the European Central Bank just cut interest rates by 25 basis points. We're not seeing much movement in market after that. But, you know, in terms of the DOGE agency cutting wasteful spending, do you think that could apply to the FBI as well? I mean, I know that they want a new headquarters. President Trump said he wants the FBI in Washington, but there's other conversations going on that maybe some people should be moving out of Washington. What about their new headquarters? Is that already appropriated, Congressman?
Well, there's been some money set aside for that. I'm opposed to that. I don't think you reward this agency that's involved in all the things we've listed and talked about. You don't reward them with a new agency. You look at our new headquarters, a new building. Right. I think you focus on the central mission. And again, I do think that DOGE should be looking at all this. And I think Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy will be doing just that. When you got a $36 trillion debt, you need to look at every penny you can save. Then you need to make sure we get the tax cuts done over the next year, which we're going to do, so that we can help grow our economy the way it needs to grow, unleash the potential that's out there with our job creators and entrepreneurs. You need to make sure all that happens. You've heard me say time and time again, I always think we make this job way too complicated. It's pretty darn simple. What did we tell the voters we were going to do when we ran for it? If they elect us, go do what you said. And we told them we would secure the border. We told them we would cut their taxes, get our economy growing, and begin to deal with this huge deficit debt problem we have. So let's do what we said. Do
you want a gigantic omnibus to include the extension of tax cuts like Jason Smith does early on in the new administration, in the new Congress?
I just want to get done what needs to get done. Those things we told the voters. I think it's likely to be 2. I think that makes sense because you do want to get the border secured. Yeah, you do want to get maybe even 3, because we can do that with the 3 fiscal years, because we're kicking the CR in the next year. We can do even 3 over the 2-year Congress. But I think you've got to secure the border, and we're not going to let. Right. There is no way we're going to let taxes go up on the families that we get the privilege of representing. I'm going to do everything I can to make sure the families in the 4th District of Ohio don't get a tax increase and Americans don't get a tax increase. So we're going to get that done.
So, Congressman, real quick before you go, you sent a letter to Fulton County DA Fani Willis giving her a deadline to hand over documents related to her case against Trump. You're investigating whether Willis colluded with the Biden administration to try to take down Trump. Willis responded saying your public statement and your letter itself make clear that you lack any legitimate legislative purpose for that inquiry. Congressman, your deadline was this past Monday. Did she ever hand over the documents? What are you going to do now?
She hasn't yet. We're going to keep the pressure on. But look, we had Nathan Wade come and set for a deposition. And he confirmed that he went and talked to folks in D.C., Justice Department, White House, and January 6 folks. Now, he couldn't remember a darn thing from what took place in those meetings, but his line was, look, if I billed for it, then I was certainly there. So we're going to keep digging and get this. This case is political. This is all part of this weaponization, and I think everyone understands it.
All right, Mr. Chairman, great to see you. Thank you so much, sir.
You bet.
Jim
Good to be
Jordan
with you.
in Washington. We'll be right back.